Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Bret Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to bretridgway.com/freebie. Welcome to the Spotlight on Speaking show with Bret Ridgway, where you'll learn the keys to building a profitable speaking business from speaking industry pros. Each week, we interview a great guest who will share his or her speaking journey, identify what their keys to success have been, and highlight some critical mistakes they've made along the way that you'll want to avoid. Be sure to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, sit back, tune in, and get ready to meet this week's guest.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show with Bret Ridgway. I am your host, and if you've watched the show at all, you may notice I am not in my normal setting. Went out to the office where I usually record, and there was no power whatsoever, so I had to relocate to home. So the lighting's a little different, and if there's a background noise, I apologize. My wife's in the other room watching the Muppet Christmas Carol, so hopefully that won't interfere with our podcast, but there's a little more glare here than normal, so I'm actually going to slide my glasses up after I introduce my guest so that we don't have that glare. But I'm excited to have as my guest today, Starley Murray. And Starley is known as the girl who went from cleaning carpets to working the red carpets. She shared the stages with Brendon, Burchard, Jim Kwik, John Assaraf, Steve Olsher, Rick Frishman, yours truly. Wow, that's the first time ever somebody has mentioned that they've shared the stage with me. Tom Antion and Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. For getting ready for the big stage of national television tips are featured in the book that I wrote with Rick Frishman and Bryan Hane called Mistakes Authors Make, that you see Starley handling there. But Starley is a celebrity brand coach, and she teaches high-performance leaders and health and wellness influencers on-camera confidence and monetized marketing. Learn from her years of producing national interviews. Starley transitioned from behind the camera to a record holder as a guest lifestyle entrepreneur across multiple television news networks and has been requested for over 3,000 television shows and stage appearances. She was raised in a house of domestic violence for her first 18 years, and Starley learned that not being seen and not being heard was crucial to her family's safety. She made it her mission to help others be seen and be heard to make a difference, especially in support of the healing angels in mental, physical, and spiritual high-performance leadership. Welcome, Starley Murray, to the Spotlight on Speaking show.
Thank you so much, Bret. I'm really excited to finally get to see you again on this little mini stage that we call a podcast show. You're always a joy to be around. You light everybody up.
Well, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, we've been trying to put this together for a while, and we finally got her going today, and then things tried to wreck it, but I am not going to let that. We're going to soldier through and do the different setting and all that stuff, and it will be A-okay. So Starley is a lady that I've known for a number of years, crossed paths with her at many events, and she is one of those people that I would call a sunshine person. So I'm excited to have you here, Starley. So let's get into your speaking journey first personally. So I've heard you speak at events, and it goes back, 10, 15 years even possibly, to some of the Author 101 events and others. But when did you first get up in front of the camera yourself and start speaking to audiences? And what was your sweet spot in terms of what you were talking about?
Yeah, so hey, thanks so much, Bret, for that beautiful introduction. I'm going to work really hard to try to live up to it. And I'd also say that getting in front of television cameras was what was first, and then it was stage speaking. And I had just as bumpy of a journey getting in front of a TV camera as I did on the stage. The difference is you were around to see my growth on the stage. Me going from the lot more scared, a lot more nervous, not knowing how I wanted to present myself, learning what was going to work for me, and then finally getting into a zone. And so thanks for being so generous and kind with your introduction, because you could have said, I remember Starley when she was bumbling around on stage, had no idea what she was doing, and now she can kind of just get up there and not embarrass herself.
If I was to do that, Starley, I would be the pot calling the kettle black. So,
So, but this is the cool thing, Brett, like this platform that you give for people like myself, and the hard work and the generosity that you have with the content that you share with your audience, sharing our journeys of the mistakes that we made or how we started. This is part of the gift of the content, of the message. So I would say when I first started on television, just because I'm such a nerd about trying to put it in the right chronological order, my 2 seconds on that was really I started off behind the scenes as a media consultant. So for the anchors, the reporters, the hosts, and then started producing television like America's Most Wanted. So national TV show was quite a lesson for me. I was a field producer, and they gave me quite the education. I'm so grateful for that. And so then what happened is I got introductions and invitations to be on camera and for television. So what happened is I turned those down for 10 years,
wow.
a decade, because I was raised in an environment of don't be seen, don't be heard, because bad things can happen. So this was my training. This was my training ground for 18 years. That's almost 2 decades. So then my first 10 years in television and film, I was quite comfortable working behind the scenes because I was a little bit of a control freak. I mean, creative person, right? And it was a good place to, you could call it hide. It was a great place to create. And I love to this day still being there. However, that set me up for a repetition of getting in front of a webcam or a stage, still having those same, kind of fear areas that I had to learn how to get past. So getting onto the, fast forward years later, I became a record holder on television, and I've done thousands of appearances, and I'm lucky they still let me back in the door. There's not a big circle with my picture in it with a line through it yet. I'm still okay, but the stage thing. So let's get into that. I lucked out. I bumbled my way into that world. I got to meet one of the show promoters, right? Rick Frishman, who's given a lot of people our first opportunities to be on stage. And he, yeah, Rick, I can't do a good imitation of him, but people know him. Come on out. Yeah, just try it out. You'll be fine. And I'm like, oh, I'm a sprinter. I do 3 minutes on television, 3 minutes. You get on the stage, and what do you have? 30 minutes. I'm like, well, after 3 minutes, what do I do? So we have 27 minutes left, Oh my goodness, I definitely thought that was closed. So, all right, we'll let that go. So that's the first thing you learn about live TV is you roll with those little extra sounds. But as far as the stage goes, I would say that the biggest challenge I had was not being rehearsed and not understanding the physical tech, around me. And since I'm a media trainer and I can read a room really, my training is I know how to read a room and read people pretty fast. When you're looking at a live audience with all those faces looking back at you, I'm absorbing all this information from all of them. And I'm like, oh, overload stimuli, overload. So what do I do with that? Because I wanted to try to take care of each person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a bad plan for me. So I would say my start on the stage was, first of all, being lucky enough to be given the opportunity, nurtured by lots of mentors around me. Thirdly, learning that there is a difference between being on one kind of stage versus another, like a 30-second versus a 30-minute. And thirdly, the difference between just a camera looking at you or a camera with, Brett on the other end on a webinar, or the stage when there's maybe lots of faces looking at you. That would have been my introduction. So there you go.
So when you got invited to speak at that first event, what was your topic?
Well, my topic was, this is another subject of lessons learned and mistakes. I started off with one type of brand, and then I noticed there were a lot of different speakers there, and I wanted to give the event a great diversity of topic matter. So I tweaked my topics, and I kept tweaking them to the point where I was having a brand identity crisis after a couple of years. But being on being on camera was the most consistent one that I had. And so there's 5 areas about being on camera that it's great for us to understand. That's our brand, our confidence, our messaging, our image, and maybe working what's behind us. And so the brand I told you was the thing that I had that first mistake with. And I thought, well, I don't want to take a stand on this one thing as being the camera person because I think they have other camera people on. I was a rookie, a very brand new person. I was like, I want to be, like you said, sunshine. And I wanted to be, uh, courteous and try to be of value to the event that was so gracious to have me there. And so, but sticking to that brand, if you're evolving your brand, that's great. But if you're changing it consistently because you're at an event and you want to be polite, that's really not the best thing. The confidence comes from preparation,
Mhm.
and the message came from planning, and the image comes from against how do you want to represent yourself? What do you feel comfortable with? I know doctors that go on stage wearing scrubs. You know.
So I'm going to ask you, Starley. So whether it's on camera or on stage with an audience, I mean, you mentioned being on stage and looking at each person and getting the visual feedback and all that stuff. So what is your best tip for an aspiring speaker as to how to best build rapport with an audience when you got all those different faces out there?
Yeah. Well, I would say I've heard some tips before that I'm going to say I kind of agree with, like you pick out a few people in different places in the room who are faces you can connect with. I do like that tip. So I'm going to just build off of that one,
Okay.
right? But I'm going to go a little bit deeper and say that when you're really dialed into your messaging and it comes from a place in your heart and you lean into servitude, even if you couldn't see anyone because you didn't have your glasses on or your contacts messed up, right? Or that person that was like your energy person that you were looking at decided to go ahead and get on the phone or leave the room. Well, this is where it's really great that you're super dialed in. So right now, I'm having this spoiled comfort zone of getting to look at my friend, mentor, and colleague, and I'm looking at you on the Zoom. Now, if on the picture itself, the viewfinder. Now, if I want to look at the camera, right, then I'm literally looking right now at the camera. And if I were to say, hey, everybody, I'm a celebrity brand expert and I help you with your video marketing specifically so you can share your heart to the camera so you can share your message with the world. I mean, if for some reason my desktop went away, I couldn't see you, I'm dialed in on my servitude, my message, and I could look at that little circle on the Zoom, or I can look into an audience where, oh, my key faces happen to walk away. So I would say that yes, on a stage, you can look out and kind of, make sure and let the crowd feel your face at lots of different angles so they can, see that you are aiming your energy all across the whole room. But at the same time, being dialed into the entire audience, you're holding them in your heart. And no matter where you look, you are projecting with emotion, with impact, with messaging, with authenticity.
All right, so going in a slightly different direction, we all know as speakers the importance of story to an effective speech and building that rapport and all that. So, what would your advice be as to how should a speaker determine which story or stories are best to include in what they're wanting to present to illustrate their point?
Yeah.
I mean,
Brett,
I have 100 different stories I could tell in a speech. So it's like, all right, how do you really decide what's going to resonate with an audience?
yeah, I love that. I think it's so cool because a lot of the tips that I'm sharing today, I just have fond memories of my growth on stage. And this is another one of those lessons learned where my story wasn't landing and then it started to land. And the progression to that was um, when you go from teaching celebrities and media members and high performance entrepreneurs to an author event where you have a lot of people who are like, no, thank you, camera, right? And they're self-proclaimed, nope, I'm introverted. No, I don't want to be seen. right? And heard on a camera or stage. Like, read my book. That's where I am, right? This is, so
Yeah.
when I first got on the stage and they were looking at my performance on stage, whether it was my wobbly deer legs in the beginning, or whether when I was getting more confident a little bit there at the end, they still looked at me as though, like, yeah, but you're already on the stage. You're 2 steps ahead of us anyway, and I can't identify with that. And so therefore your stories, I can't identify with that. So when my first story to them was like, hey guys, look, I've been there. When my first television appearance, I was literally ill. I got sick. I was so scared when I got on camera. And I thought, okay, that'll land, because I was teaching from a story that was true. But they're kind of like, yeah, well, let's see. The last time I was at a television station, yeah, I got sick too. I mean, they didn't land. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's not good enough. And here, this is so terrible, Brett. I was like, all right, I'm going to tell the story about when I was younger and I'm in school and I'm an A student in English, but I take an F on the book report because I don't want to stand up in front of the class because I'm so horrified to stand. And I was like, great, this will be empathy, right? And they'll connect with me because I'm holding a book and I'm introverted. That didn't really land either because they're still distracted with the fact that I was so comfortable on stage. The third story is what landed, is when I said, hey guys, I understand. I know you probably don't realize that I'm kind of introverted because you're seeing me in my extroverted servitude mode. I'm extroverted when I'm in servitude mode. It's just natural now. However, I was raised in an environment of domestic violence. My first 18 years of my life, it was paramount for me not to be seen, not to be heard. Total frozen fear. So if you think I don't understand what it's like to be afraid, or to have people who are going to judge you, or to know that the spotlight is on you, please understand I do empathize. I can relate. And then I told the story that's specific to authors. So 3 times, 3 different stages. I'm like, why is the story not landing? I'm using my heart. It's all true. You have to know what's going to land with your audience in their stories.
Your story is so similar in many ways to mine. I was happy to be the back of the room guy, behind the scenes and all that. And, eventually I said, all right, Brett, you need to get over that and get up in front of the room too. But I'm a natural introvert also. And you just got to get your game face on it. And like you said, go into that extrovert mode when it's time to do that. And that's not my normal mode whatsoever, but there's a time and a place for everything, right?
Oh, that's right. Stage is different. Now we're still being ourselves in here, but we're maybe just a little bit more connecting with the messaging. So I found that I started to become more expressive, with my face. And I thought that when I was smiling, I thought that was smiling, I'm like, well, because I'm smiling in here. I mean, I'm a happy person. Yeah, I'm grateful. Every day I'm alive. I'm grateful, really. But I was like, I looked at the film footage and I was like, I look asleep. I don't look like I'm smiling.
Well, that raises an interesting question. If you're doing a webinar or something via Zoom or whatever, how much do you need to, quote, exaggerate your emotions or your movements or whatever for them to truly be seen to somebody who's not face to face with you in person?
Yeah. So that's an excellent question. I would say that, on stage, you have a lot of footage to cover. However, cameras can be on you at that same time. So you're always operating within a box with a couple of feet around you, or usually, I know there may be tight shots from time to time. But what I will say is it's a little bit less about our exaggeration of our body language. This is the way I express myself. But in terms of your facial expressions or your energy, in terms of enunciating, having pregnant pauses, really trying to emphasize a word, it's that emphasis is for keeping anybody enticed and interested on pretty much any medium, of whether you're on a stage or whether you're on a webcam, because look what you're fighting against. They have their cell phones and they have cameras and televisions, and they have iPads and other interruptions. So really holding someone's attention if I'm an introverted person, just nobody believes me because the times they see me on camera, I'm in extroverted service mode. But holding their attention, it doesn't mean you need to come out of your skin, but you definitely want to make sure that what you're having in your heart is landing in a way that they can actually notice and that they can attach to. And as language, remember I said the story wasn't landing? Well, language, which are we using our jargon? Oftentimes we'll use our jargon and, maybe those aren't words that they can understand. Like I could say call time, maybe they know call time. I could say rap. Rap is real popular. They know that one, rap. But there's a lot of jargon that you need to dial into that's audience friendly.
So, for a speaker, what are the major differences, if any? I'm sure there are, but what are the major differences between doing a on-stage presentation and doing an on-camera presentation?
For the presentation, well, a lot of the times it's the time frame. So also there is the reality of on camera versus the interesting time frame on stage. Now, Brett, have you been in this situation where you look over at the countdown clock? So guys, it might look something like, something like that. And you're going, oh, okay, great. I've got, I have 10 minutes left. And then you look over there again and you have like 60 seconds. So I'm like, oh, so because they may adjust it. They may be they're trying to make up time, things like that. Right. And so that one of the differences is time. So you may think you have a longer period of time, but it may actually change in this live world of stage. And then in like a pre-recorded or a live Zoom call, a lot of the times we're still working with, all right, we have 10 real minutes left, or we have 2 real minutes left. Live television is just a race to that. It's the same thing. It could be cut shorter, but it's a lot of multitasking, and layered messaging is one of the things that I teach. Layered messaging, because you can get a lot covered in a shorter period of time. I only have sometimes 3 minutes on television to do an intro, 5 points, a closing, referencing some sort of graphics or a prop, and interacting in that 3 minutes with a host, which means I'm only getting $1.50 out of those 3 minutes. So layered messaging is important whether you're in a time crunch or whether you're on a stage. You're on a stage, you might have presentations like PowerPoints, props, things like that. But I would say the biggest differences is real time and pretend time, and just length of time altogether. And the energy to me is very similar. So you still want to pull them in,
I got some other questions I want to ask you, Starley, but before we do, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor.
Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Bret Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to bretridgway.com/freebie.
And we are back with the Spotlight on a Speaking Show, and my guest in this episode is Starley Murray. So, Starley, now's I call this the Bare Your Soul portion of the program, and that is, all right, share some embarrassing thing that happened to you along the way, whether it be on a live stage or in front of the camera, that you were red-faced and embarrassed at the time, but it was a valuable lesson that was learned, and some mistake that you would highly advise an aspiring speaker not to make.
Oh, this never happened to me, Brett. I mean, over 3,000 type appearances, nothing's, right. Never. Okay. Well, maybe
give me the best one.
Okay. All right. So in other words, you read into me. There's so many. Okay. So let's see. I would say that tech has always been my nemesis. Anyone that knows me knows, like, the Zoom link would be right in front of me, and my own staff's like, ma'am, it's to the left. I'm like, oh, there it is. Tech has been my nemesis, the simplest to the hardest. So I remember on stage one time where I'm so excited. I'm going to show that we have all these videos because I teach videos, like video marketing, right? They're how to have that brand and the messaging. So I'm on stage teaching how to use videos, which means the videos working would be helpful in the training, but my videos were all being shown through Wi-Fi, as opposed to being shown through a laptop that was connected to a big screen, or to the AV guys that had a laptop connected to a big screen. So when you're accessing a video that needs time to play and buffer through, using that Wi-Fi, you can lose your visual presentation. And 80% of my presentation was the videos themselves. So then I had to go into da-dun, 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 and I did have some of it dialed in, but there was a lot of, moments where you could tell, the audience could tell you were totally not prepared, because it didn't occur to me that I could lose it, because I've done rehearsals, but who does a 1 hour rehearsal testing all the tech? Well, back in that day, I did not.
I've seen speakers many times do presentations where they were relying on the internet for the hotel or the venue, and they were going to try to do something live online or whatever, and it just didn't work at all. And
That's
my
the
advice,
time.
my advice to speakers is never try to include a live function like that as part of your presentation.
Yeah.
Pre-record it, play it back or whatever, but trying to do live internet demos is just asking for trouble.
Yeah. And, I actually followed a nationally recognized speaker that is pretty big in the industry. And all of his videos, AV, there was a crash on it. And so I already saw it was coming up. I got that little warning. I did a little rest in peace on his PowerPoint presentation. I was like, so sorry for you. And then when I went up there, and I knew mine was going to crash too. And I said, hey guys, let me tell you what, it's just you and me here. We don't need the videos, right? Let's do this. And I was all pumped up because I had that advantage. So my poor mentor and the person that went before me kind of got crashed on the video. But another one that I would say came, that was an issue. Let me think of this one. I would definitely say was that countdown clock got me really bad the first time, because no one ever gave me that warning. And so I'll tell that, but I'll end with a tip. So the crash and burn for me where it didn't work is I looked over and saw the countdown clock was going negative. And so I thought, I didn't know I'd never seen that before. I didn't know what that was. So I thought, oh yeah, I've got, I have 5 minutes left. I was 5 minutes over, and the show promoter's like, get off the stage, get off. And I didn't know.
Worst I ever saw was a guy who actually went a full 30 minutes over his presentation.
Oh, you know what? I've seen that. I acted like, oh, no, I was like, no, wait a minute. I've seen that too.
Yep.
So yeah, 30 minutes. Did they get invited back? I'm just curious.
I think they remained in good standing, but they were extremely embarrassed. And fortunately, the host had built some flexibility into his schedule, so they were able to get things back in sync. But I mean, he was ribbed about that for years. So
yeah, I had another one that was embarrassing too. So I remember the new ones the most. Rather than here's when I did it and I was so fancy. And
I have a guest host here.
Oh, my guest host isn't here.
Say hello, Gracie.
Hi, Gracie. Well, if Kitty Bear walks in, she usually sits on that chair. And yes, this is a real chair in a real studio. So I would say this one was this was really uncomfortable for me. I didn't know what to do. So it's a brand new speaker, and I was very relying on my laptop and my presentation, right, as my safety blanket. And because again, I was new, my content, the rehearsals weren't there. I'm literally, Brett, coming from one live television appearance and working a red carpet I was doing 80 to 100 hours a week, traveling on the road, full-time in publicity, and then sliding
You're
into
nuts.
I know, right? Yes, nice to meet you. And then in the speaker role, then I was unprepared. And then I'm next to world-class speakers who, have done it tons and tons, thousands of times. And I'm up there like second time, fourth time doing it. So I show up and I set up my laptop and I'm like, okay, my security blanket is all set. Okay, the clicker works, ready to go. And then a more seasoned speaker walked in and said, well, I want that spot where your laptop is, and I don't want your laptop to be there. And I was like, well, but I go on next. I was like, you, and the speaker was like, well, I go on right after you and I won't have time. There's no break. And so I want that spot. And I was thinking, having relationships with other speakers was actually a good thing. And had I had some rapport with some of the other speakers, maybe that might have been something easier for me to handle. I was just scared and I didn't know what to do. And maybe I could have said like, hey girl, no, don't worry about it. You can have that spot, and I could just go up there and do it without a PowerPoint, or stand my ground if I needed to. But not knowing other speakers, not knowing other personalities, and not knowing the normal protocols of a stage was exciting and scary, and I felt awkward, but I look back now and I laugh.
Right. So as we wind down our time together, Starley, I'd like to give you a few minutes to tell people a little bit more about what all it is you are doing and how they can get involved in your world if they so choose.
Yay. Well, if it's somebody that's coming from your world, I already know that I'm lucky enough that I'm getting to be around heart-centered, best of the best experts, because you attract heart-centered, best of the best experts. So first of all, thank you for that. And then specifically what I am doing is, for the first time in a 30-year career, I've always been only available my content on stages, on television, or I may have lived like in Bret's world, as a guest expert kind of thing, other big fish, right? Like you're like other influencers world. But for the first time, I'm doing my own community coaching. And I know it's called group coaching, but I tend to call it community, because literally every single person in there we have a rapport with. And the majority that are coming to us are health and wellness experts that are speakers and authors, people who have been on television or want to be on TV. And yes, we have a few like lawyers and accountants and things like that, because I like that. That gives a lot of diversity to that world, right? All of us we're business people, so we need access in our community, other friends, colleagues that have this diversity. But anyway, in this world, this community coaching, we are teaching basically video marketing, the mastery of video marketing, how to feel comfortable in front of the camera. Even our seasoned influencers will come to me and say, look, I have camera confidence, but I really want to continue to dial in deeper with audience authenticity, because I've done my presentation over 2,000 times. And I'll have new people that are saying, I'm amazing at being the expert that I am, but I change somehow when I get in front of the camera. Can you help me with that? So that's what happens in the camera confidence. The camera branding, the point I want to make on that, Brett, and cut me off and do the clock if you need to.
I would never do that.
Just go like that. But here's the thing. I will literally have people who are so great at what they do, but they'll come to me so upset when they get to the part of the video marketing that's the sales script, something like that, something where they have to convert, ask for help, ask for the relationship, ask for the sale. And the reason why, Brett, is because oftentimes they're working from some cool template that's very effective, and it does work as an outline, right? And the masses, it's easy to have access to a sales video script, something like that. But what I find is they know that they're not being themselves when they're doing the script, because they don't know how to alter the words, the messaging to be their authentic messaging. They don't know how to be themselves on camera while they're doing a script that's not their words. They come to me, red faced, sometimes teary eyed, literally upset. And these are people who are very structured, sound, cool, cucumbers. And they are upset because they're like, I just feel like an imposter, or I don't feel like I'm myself. And I love my audience and my clients, and I feel like I'm lying to them, but I know I'm not. I just feel awkward with this delivery. Therefore, they won't do it for a week or a month or a year. And they will not launch a program or provide a service or get paid what they should, because they don't have their brand dialed in. They don't have the messaging dialed in. and they're great about giving free content, free content, free content. But when it's time for them to get rewarded back with some income, with some recognition, there's this a little bit of an awkwardness with that transition. And so I teach them how to have the exact same power and pride and energy as they are when they're in full servitude mode. So there's that.
So I know that the URL to go for more information for this upcoming program is fairly long, so we'll just make sure it's in the show notes down below, so
Yep.
you can click through that to get to Starley. But also, what's your main website? So if somebody wants to just check you out and what all you have going on, is it just starleymurray.com or something else?
StarleyMurray.com, by the time this airs, will probably be in a transition because it's the new year, right? So we have so yes, please check out StarleyMurray.com in the new year. If it's before the new year, you'll probably get an old site. And the On-Camera-Authenticity.com is where there's all the goodies and the opt-ins and the free stuff, and then book a calls and things like that. But yeah, so you got access to both.
All right, outstanding. Well, Starley, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on this episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show. It's been a delight to catch up with you and have you share the platform with me. For everybody out there listening or watching, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I wish you the greatest of success in all that you do, and may this year be your greatest year yet. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
This has been the Spotlight on Speaking show with Bret Ridgway. Be sure to join us every week as we interview speaking industry pros and have them share their best tips for building a profitable speaking business. Until next week, thank you for tuning in, and remember to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com so you can enjoy even more great episodes like this one. While you're here, be sure to subscribe via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Spotlight on Speaking show. Until then, our sincere best wishes to you for the greatest of success as you work to build your own profitable speaking business.